welcome back to another edition of Guitars, Gear, and God. Today we're going to be taking a look at my new amp, which is a Fender Blues Deluxe. It's a reissue amp made with the tweed look. I love the look of it. I love the sound of it. I've actually had a few modifications done to it based on all sorts of things that I've looked at online. So I'm going to try to break some of those modifications down for you a little bit without getting too technical, because I really don't know what all of the individual pieces are. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the pedals that we've got running into it, and how it's affecting the sound, and then just what some of the functions of the amp are. And again, this is the Fender Blues Deluxe reissue. It's a 40-watt amp, tube amp. I think you're going to love it. It's got tons of power. It's just an awesome amp. Okay, to start with the amp, let me give you just an idea of what the kind of clean sound on this amp, without any pedals really disrupting it, going through it. Let me just give you that sort of that clean channel amp, typical Fender's bell-like sound. Okay, and that's playing through my Les Paul with dual humbuckers, so that kind of gives you that sound. If that particular sound was coming through my bridge pickup, if I move it up to the neck pickup, gives you a slightly different tone here. If we want to tear a little bit into just a little bit of a crunchy sound with it, I'll turn on a little, maybe tiny bit of delay into it here as well. Okay, so that gives you kind of a good idea, just with some clean sound, not really anything going on there as far as effects go. It's got just a tiny bit of reverb coming through the amp already. So let's talk a little bit about some of the functions on the amp itself, and I'm going to try to walk you through some of the modifications that I've done to this particular amp as well. Okay, one of the things I was going to mention to you is that I am doing all of the recording with the guitar parts for this through this Sennheiser microphone right here. It is the 609, the E609. This is what the box looks like. If you're interested in picking one of those up, it's a great amp for miking your amp. So if you're looking for one of those, it's kind of nice because you can just hang it right here. You just wrap it around your handle, dangles right here just in front of your speaker. As we look at the specs of this amp, it is a 40-watt amp, and it's got one 12-inch speaker in it, and that speaker is actually, they call it a special edition Eminence speaker. I don't know what's special about it. It is not a particularly fantastic sounding speaker, although it's not horrible. You know, I've read a lot of different comments on forums and blogs, and most people don't like it, to be honest with you. Some people love it, a few people, they probably work for Fender, I don't know, but most people don't seem to be crazy about the speaker. So a lot of people, one of the first upgrades that they do to this amp is they switch out the speaker. I didn't do that. I haven't done that yet, although I am considering putting in a Jensen speaker. I've been looking at a lot of different options. I like the Jensen C12K, and and from what I've read and for the type of sound that I'm looking for, that seems to be a speaker that's pretty popular for an upgrade. I think there's a lot of other choices out there that I've read about. I think there's lots of different directions that you could go with this, depending on what type of sound you're hoping to get. But one of the things that I was having troubles with when I first got the amp it's really, really powerful. Even though it's 40 watts, it sort of blows you out of the house. And one of the struggles with it was the volume control. And when you look right here on the top, here's your volume control, and it's dialed 1 through 12 right now. You can see that I only have it on a volume 3 right here, and you can turn this up or down this way. It does have these, vintage style knobs, which are kind of cool. I like those. I think they call those the chicken head knobs. But when you look at this, I only have it on a 3. And to be honest with you, if I wasn't filming a video, I usually don't even have it on a 3 because it's just too loud in my little music room here for just playing. So a lot of times I'll turn it down to a 2. Now, when I first got the amp, it was really obnoxiously loud, and you're going to see that it's got these 2 channels on it. You got channel 1 right here, and input 1 and input 2. Now, I did some research on this, and what I found that is when it's in input 1, it actually is significantly louder than when it's input 2. When you actually move this jack into input 2, it reduces it. I don't know what the exact percentage is, but it reduces it probably by around 30 or 40% of the output, which is kind of nice. It gives you a little bit more volume control. I thought it sounded just fine, although when I spoke to some different people at different guitar shops, they said that because of the way this particular amp is wired, that you will actually get a better sound using the input 1. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but that's what they claim. So what I did was I had been looking at some different I think what they're called is the Frommel Supreme Kits, I believe is what it's called. It's a Deluxe Reverb reissue Frommel Supreme Kit, and you can find them online, and I don't know what they cost. They're $100, $200, something like that. And I had been looking at a couple different forums and stuff, and there were several people that said that they went out and they did this kit. And one of the things that it did for them was it gave them a cleaner, better sound, but it also gave them better volume control so that this knob was a little bit more usable. And what I mean by usable is when you barely turn this knob at all, it gets ridiculously loud really quick, and it goes from almost no sound to blow your doors off sound and not a whole lot in between. It's kind of obnoxious. So I actually spoke to a guy that we have a guitar store right here in Minneapolis. If you're in the Minneapolis area, you could probably even send your amp here if you wanted to. It's a great little boutique shop that I just happened to stumble across, and it's called Twin Town Guitars, and they got a guitar guy there, an amp guy by the name of Chris, and Chris is their tech, and he is the man. I really enjoyed working with him. He was super honest. He was up front. He asked me a lot of questions about what kind of sound I was going for. He didn't try to sell me everything under the sun. In fact, when I went to him, I told him some things I wanted to do to the amp, and he talked me out of them. He said, don't waste your money on those things, which I could really appreciate. So one of the reasons I didn't upgrade the speaker yet was I had him do some other modifications to this that were very similar to the Frommel kit, and he wanted me to take the amp back home and see how I liked it. And he wanted me to play with it first with just those modifications and see if it was good at that point, if I liked it. And if it wasn't what I was looking for, then he said, then let's bring it back and we'll mess with the speaker and see if we want to make that speaker adjustment. So that was kind of cool. I can appreciate that. So there's my plug for Twin Town Guitars in Minneapolis and Chris, their guitar tech there. So anyway, for whatever that's worth. So I think that when you look at this amp, one of the things that I had him do, and I won't, I'm going to sit this down for a second. I won't be able to explain all of the stuff that he did, but I'm just going to show you this, and hopefully you can kind of see this through the plastic here. you can see that there's a whole bunch of different capacitors that were in here, switches, capacitors, a jack. I don't even know what all of it is, but it's a bunch of little tiny parts in here that are kind of hard to see. So there was a whole bunch of things within this kit, and these were all pieces that they took out of my amp and replaced them with other pieces that they were able to solder in better, higher quality stuff, not this cheap garbage, put in higher quality parts, and really to do the whole thing. So he switched out all of these parts for me. It sounds much, much, much better. And then one of the really cool things that it's kind of hard, I don't think I'm going to be able to show it to you, so I'm just going to have to tell it to you. But if you go straight back from right here on my amp and go straight back down, there's actually a little dial switch right here that Chris installed for me, and it's super cool. And what it is it's a master volume. So what the idea is on this, you've got a volume, and then over here you've got this thing called a master. But the master truly isn't a very effective master volume. It's really a volume of the second gain stage of your amp, and it's not very user friendly. And so the way this is set up right now is I can get all of the dials set exactly where I want them, and then I can use this dial back here that they installed for me to set the level of where I want the entire amp to be at that point in time. And it's kind of for me, it's been sort of a set it and forget it. I got it set up where I want it. I don't mess with it anymore. The only thing I really move at all at this point is just a little bit of this volume knob right here. So it's been great for me. I love the modification. I think I spent a couple $100 total on it to get all of these parts redone, get that master knob put in there. And when I first bought the amp, about a year after I got it, it was shorting a little bit. There was something going on with the on-off switch and the standby switch, so they also fixed that, and there was a little bit of troubleshooting and stuff there. But so they did a good job fixing all of this for me, and I've not had any problems since. It works great for me. So as you go across the rest of the top of this amp here, you're going to see you got your volume. You've also got a normal bright. For me, I usually have this set on just normal. I don't bring it into the bright. I don't need it any brighter. It's a plenty bright amp already. You don't need to add to it. And then you've got your drive, which your drive typically, especially if you don't have the modification for this master volume down here, your drive relates to when you are in channel 2, Overdrive 2. This drive affects that. So when you use your foot pedal channel selector that comes with this amp, you can switch it to channel 2, your drive channel, and then this knob right here will control that a little bit, so you can adjust that. Then you've got treble, and you can see on mine, this is such a bright amp already. It's so high end, tingy sound. I don't know how to describe it. That I have my treble all the way down on just over 3. My bass is at about noon on a little over 6. My mid is at about 6, and then I've got my master over here on 4. My reverb, which is also controlled by a foot selector, and I'll show you that in just a second. It's also controlled by the foot selector, the same one that changes the channel to the overdrive. You can turn your reverb on or off. Now, I don't usually have the amp reverb on because I have a pedal reverb that I'll show you. So I usually don't have this on, but occasionally, if I don't want quite as dramatic of reverb that would come from my pedal, and I just want a little bit of reverb sound, I'll kick on my pedal that powers this amp, or that controls this foot switch, and I'll use this reverb here. And then presence, I keep that at around 6, and you got to play with that a little bit. I think it depends on a little bit about what pedals you're running into this, what kind of sound you're trying to achieve. Are you playing in the mix of a band or just playing by yourself? So you're going to play with that presence a little bit to try to get the sound you want. Now, you'll notice on mine, I've got the foot switch, which controls the foot switch, I'll show you. And then you've got this power amp in, and then you've got preamp out. These right here I do not use, and those are for sometimes when people are running their pedal board, if they want to try to create an effects loop, you would use those two, and they would create their effects loop where typically you're going to have your overdrive, your gain stage type pedals are going to be coming into the amp, and then it's going to run through your amp and come into your more of your effects driven things, your reverbs, your delays, your choruses, all of your modulation type of effects. Some people like to run it that way. They like the idea of having that effects loop. I don't. I run everything straight off my board, straight into the front of the amp. I run one cord right out of my pedal board, right here into the top of the amp. So that's how I do it. It's how I've always done it. I talked to several people at a couple different guitar stores, and I've read a lot of the stuff online, and it seems to be that a lot of other people choose to do it this same way. I don't know that there's a right or wrong way. I'm sure somebody will tell me on the comments section that I'm probably doing it totally wrong and that it would sound better if I did it a different way. Maybe one of them will show up someday for me and help me set it up that way, and I'll see how it sounds. But for now, this seems to work easy for me, and it was very easy to set up. Okay, the last two switches you've got are a standby. You got the red glowing light that tells you it's on. You've got your standby, and then you got your on-off. And the standby is really for primarily if you're doing a gig, if you're playing, maybe you're playing at church or you're playing in a band, and you're gonna have a set break, or maybe it's time you did the opening worship section or something, and it's time to go off the stage for a period of time while the main pastor comes on and speaks, and perhaps you're going to be coming back up onto stage and concluding with another song. And so what a lot of guys will do is they will just switch this switch to the standby. And what it'll do is it will reduce the power on this. It'll silence it so that if you happen to bump your strings on your guitar or something, you're not going to get any sound coming out of it. And then and it also lets your tubes cool down a little bit, but it doesn't bring them all the way down to where you've got to rewarm the amp back up. So when you come back up to play after your set break, you can flip that switch back on, and your amp is hot. It's ready to go right then. You don't have any warm-up period. You'll get sound out of it right away. So that's kind of a nice function if you're playing in a band or something and you might need to use that. So next, let me show you this foot switch. All right, now let's take a look at the foot selector switch that it actually comes with. You could replace this, I suppose, if you wanted to, with more of an aftermarket AB type switcher or something, but this works just fine. As you can see, you've got the channel selector on here. It's a little dusty, and when you select on this, it's going to light up on here. It's also going to light up on top of your amp over here. This is just moving it from channel 1 to the overdrive channel to channel 2 to give you a little bit more gain, which is kind of nice when you're playing, moving from one channel to the other. If you just want a little bit of boost, or you could crank it up to where this really sends you into a little bit more of an overdrive. This alone, without any effects on your board, is not going to move you from a clean bell-like sound into the realm of heavy metal, but it is going to give you a little bit of grit in your sound, which, and it certainly, I actually typically leave mine on it's more of a clean boost. I have it really set to more of a clean, just bringing the amp up above the mix if I need a little more volume is what I typically use it for. So you've got that, and then over here, you've got your reverb switch. And again, this is using the reverb that is built into the amp if you want to use that reverb. It's a wonderful reverb. It sounds great. The only reason I don't use it very often is it's sort of one-dimensional. You have to turn it on whatever reverb volume or setting that you want, and then it's on and off right here. Whereas my reverb pedal that's on my pedal board, it has a little bit more versatility to it. I can come up with a number of different types of reverb effects and sounds that I want to use for that. So that's that. The last thing I think that I was going to show you is, as you can see, if you take a look at my board, this is one of my pedal boards. Nothing too sophisticated, it's nothing too fancy, but you can see that I have all of these pedals right here, a series of overdrive pedals, a compression pedal, overdrive pedals, volume, delay, reverb, chorus. I've got all of these running straight out of my reverb right here, this cord, and it comes up to the top of my amp where I'm plugged into channel 1, again right here. So very simple. My guitar is coming into the other end of the pedal board. It actually comes right here into my tuner, and that's where I go into the pedal board. It channels all the way through this, comes out here, goes right into my amp. So I've never had any problems with it. I don't get a lot of noise issues or some of the things that you hear other people talking about, some issues that they have by running their pedals that way. I've never experienced any of it with this amp or with this pedal setup, but you may have to play with it and adjust it a little bit. So let me do this. Why don't I'm just going to play a little bit for you because I want to give you a little bit of an idea on some of the sound quality of this amp, which is really what it's all about. It's got great features, but it's a beautiful sounding amp for the money. So let me just play a couple things here for you. Hear a little bit of what that sounds like. Again, this is just fairly clean. I don't have any dirt channels or anything like that going on with it. I'll give you a little bit more of a chord type of sound going on here. Okay, so you can hear it sounds pretty good. It's got a good gritty sound to it. Right now I'm playing again with my pickups set to my bridge selector. So let me just turn a couple things on to give you a little bit of variety here. If I take a little bit of, let's just go with the pedal selector once, and you can just listen here. You'll hear the difference. Pretty subtle difference. It's not a huge difference. So not a big difference going back and forth between the two because I don't have the gain turned up real far. If I turn that up a little bit, you can hear it gets loud in a hurry. I've only got that set on volume 6 right now, so it's only halfway up when I hit that pedal. So you can get a tremendous amount of volume lift or overdrive type of lift effect if you want. Again, with it up right now where it's at, you can hear if I go. Gives you a little bit of an idea of that overdriven sound. I'll see if I can, I'm going to hit the reverb for you just to see if you hear any difference. Very subtle difference. If I crank the reverb up all the way, you know, it's about on 9 now. Let's see what difference that gives us. That's off. Definitely gets a little more swirly. But now, if you listen, if I turn the pedal board reverb on, I've got a Hall of Fame reverb. Let's turn that one on and put it into there. You'll hear it a little more. I think you can understand why I choose to use the Hall of Fame reverb. It's an incredible sound. It's a beautiful, airy type of sound. Especially if you're playing in a worship band, if you're playing with a church, it gives you that really nice sound. If you're doing volume swells or something, this type of reverb pedal is going to work great for you. I'll pick a little tiny something here for you to hear just some clean notes. So you can see it's got a beautiful, real airy type of sound. I've just got that on a basic delay. If I want to switch that, right now that's on like a just a simple basic delay. If I want to move it to more of a bigger, echoey church type of sound for doing a swell, let me just do that for you here. I've got the reverb on and the delay on, and I'll play just something to give you that idea. So you can hear with that's using a volume pedal, the Ernie Ball Junior volume pedal. I've got the reverb on. I've got a little bit of delay on, a big delay on there. Again, I'm using the Boss DD500 delay here, which is just loaded with lots of different delay types of effects. So the point of the video wasn't to really go over a bunch of pedals with you. I just wanted you to see that I'm running a lot of different pedals into the front of this. Maybe the only one I didn't show you was like an overdrive. Let me just turn on an overdrive a little bit, and you can hear a little bit of what that might sound like. Gives it a nice sound. It's got a pretty gritty sound. That is an overdrive. That's just your basic MXR overdrive that's turned way down. I don't have hardly any overdrive on it actually. If I want something a little grittier, I can turn on the MXR 78. So you get the idea. Handles distortion well. It actually breaks up pretty nice. It gives you a nice crunchy feel. Again, I don't think this will be your choice of amp if you're playing in a heavy metal band, but if you are playing in a worship band or a blues band or a classic rock band, and you need to get a little bit gritty with it at times, or you just want a little bit of crunch to bring you up over the band, this is a great amp for it, and it's got all the volume, like I said, you'll probably ever need. And if for some reason you need more, you could mic this thing up, run it through your church's PA or something. So very versatile amp. I like it. It's only about 45 pounds. I've got other amps that are much heavier and bigger. They're a pain in the butt to haul around and bring them back and forth into church and back. This is a real easy amp to haul around, and it's not a real expensive amp. I think they're, maybe $800 or so brand new. You can find them used for $500 or so. So if you do get this thing dinged up a little bit, it actually probably makes it look even better. It gives it that nice vintage beat up look to it. So you don't have to worry so much about this one getting destroyed. You didn't spend $2,000 or $3,000 on it. And frankly, I think it sounds just as good as several of the boutique amps that I've listened to at some of the different guitar stores around the country. So anyway, I think that's all I've got for you on this one. If you liked what I covered for you, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up.